What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. And I promised you guys that I would make a video talking about the Kansas City Chiefs undrafted free agent signings and some of my favorite ones. Just going to kind of break them down. I'm not going to go over every single UDFA that the Chiefs have brought in because there are a ton of them, but this video is mainly going to be about some of my favorite guys. A lot of players that have been getting the most hype from Chiefs fans since the Chiefs signed them. I'm going to be talking about mainly those ones, but I will make sure to list every single reported UDFA signing so far. But I must preface this video by saying that these are undrafted free agents. These are undrafted free agents for a reason, and it has to be said that 80 to 90% of most undrafted free agents never end up doing anything. So it's cool to get excited about these guys. It's fun to get excited about some of these guys, wondering if the Kansas City Chiefs got a steal, and I will explain some of the weaknesses and some of the reasons why I think these guys went undrafted when talking about them. But it's important for everyone to remember that most UDFAs don't do anything, and most of them that do end up doing something, they even take a couple of years just to get onto the active game day roster. So without further ado, let's get into the Kansas City Chiefs undrafted free agents. I'm going to start this video with the undrafted free agent running backs that the Kansas City Chiefs have brought in so far. If you watched my video yesterday grading the Kansas City Chiefs draft class, I talked about how I was kind of disappointed that the Chiefs didn't address running back in the draft with an option that was going to be serviceable, that was almost guaranteed to make the roster in 2024. Instead, they're going the UDFA route, which is fine because you can find contributing running backs as undrafted free agents. The Chiefs have done it before, and a lot of teams around the league have done it before. But with that said, I'm not a huge fan of where this running back room stands because you have Isaiah Pacheco, who's solid and can start, but behind him you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I'm just not a fan of at all. You know, I've had comments saying, hey, he's just a backup running back. He's fine as a backup running back. I don't even like him as a backup because I think he's not efficient enough. A backup running back is getting anywhere from 5 to 10 touches in a game. And I just don't think CEH is efficient enough to be getting 5 to 10 touches a game, because, I mean, he averaged 3.2 yards per carry last year. Everyone still talks about how he's a threat in the receiving game when he's really not, and he's got a small catch radius. He's small, he's slow, he's unathletic. You're a Pacheco injury away from him being the starter. I just would like the Chiefs to bring in a running back option, and they still could later in the offseason if somebody gets cut from somewhere, or they could pull off a late offseason trade, something like that. So that's still a route too. The UDFAs are not our last resort, but the Chiefs brought in a couple intriguing ones, and I'm going to start with TCU running back Imani Bailey. Obviously, he was teammates with 4th-round Chiefs draft pick Jared Wiley, but Imani Bailey, this is one of the most interesting UDFA signings that the Chiefs have made because he looks really good on film. I mean, really good. I've had a lot of TCU fans tell me that he was the best player on TCU's offense last year. He had 223 attempts for 1,209 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's good for 7.4 yards per carry. But here's the catch with him, and here's why I think he went undrafted. He had one of the worst RAS scores of any running back in the NFL draft, any draft-eligible running backs in a long time. He had a RAS score that was so bad that no player with a RAS score that low has ever had a successful run in the NFL. But what's so confusing to me is that he's been clocked at over 20 miles per hour. So that I don't understand the 40-yard dash time, why that was so bad. It makes sense why, he was knocked for his size. That's probably another reason he went undrafted. He's like 5'7" or 5'8" and just a little bit over 200 pounds, if even. So he's small, but looking at him on film, he seems to have a little bit of wiggle. I see him put some decent moves on defenders. I've seen him blow by defenders in his TCU film. I don't understand why his athletic testing was so bad, but I also understand why he went undrafted. No player that has tested that badly has ever succeeded in the NFL. And with running backs, athleticism matters more at that position than any other position. I've said it before, but as a running back, you can be small but be super athletic and succeed. You can be big and unathletic but succeed because you can be kind of that power backer guy that gets those tough yards. Darrell Williams is a really good example. You know, he was a UDFA, but he was a bruising runner. That's why he stuck on the Chiefs for so long. Imani Bailey is neither of those things, according to his pre-draft process. So I don't know why, and maybe there's a TCU fan that can tell me why he tested so poorly in the pre-draft process, but I just don't get it with him. He's going to be real interesting to watch, though, because maybe he's just one of those guys that you put on the pads and he just is a good football player. I don't know. But the athletic testing is a massive concern with him, and the size is also a concern with him. Looks really good. Was a good college player, productive college player. It'll be interesting to see. I hope he pops for the Chiefs. That would be real nice if he did. The bar is Clyde Edwards-Helaire for me, so if he can clear that bar, then I'm really happy about this, but we'll see with him, man. He is the most intriguing UDFA by far, though, in my opinion, for those reasons. The other UDFA running back that the Chiefs decided to bring in was UCLA running back Carson Steel. And this was a guy that the Chiefs brought in on a visit during the pre-draft process, so there was interest there prior to the Chiefs signing him as a UDFA. I had seen him mocked to the Chiefs a couple of times in the later rounds. I had him mocked to the Chiefs a couple of times in the later rounds in my mock drafts. He has potential as a third down back because he's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. He's got a little Kyle Juszczyk in him. He's a pretty good athlete himself. Some of the shortcomings that I saw, though, when watching him on film, and I did some film review of him, posted it to Twitter, he is not a good pass protector. This is not a guy you want out there on third downs pass protecting for Patrick Mahomes on passing downs because, I mean, his technique is pretty awful. He doesn't seem like a super willing blocker in those pass protection reps, and that's just something that he's going to need to do if he wants to be a third down back in the NFL, is be a better pass protector. But he's a good outlet for the quarterback on passing downs, you know, good receiver out of the backfield. He's got a little bit of juice. I thought he was a little bit slow turning upfield at times. I thought that, you know, his hips looked a little bit stiff, but this is a guy that if he has some space in front of him can definitely get you some good chunk yardage. So there's potential here. I like this as a solid UDFA pickup. There's not too much more to say about him outside of that. Obviously, there was the interest pre-draft, so it makes sense why he came to Kansas City. Building those relationships helps you land these guys as UDFAs, so we'll see what he does. Really hoping one of him, either or Imani Bailey, pops, but if not, then you're going to have to go a different direction. But I'm really hoping one of these guys ends up being it for the Kansas City Chiefs. It'd be real nice if they were. The next guy that I looked at and that I saw a lot of hype around, and that was the reason that I looked further into him, was Penn State linebacker Curtis Jacobs. There's a lot of people that feel like, how the hell did this guy go undrafted? How? Because he's a freak athlete, and you're going to hear me say that a lot, like, athlete, great athlete, athleticism. I'm huge into athleticism. Most people should be. The Chiefs are. The Kansas City Chiefs had one of the most athletic drafts in 2024. That was for a reason. Brett Veach has embraced athleticism more and more, and I think the Chiefs should continue to do that because athleticism is an indicator of ceiling. I've went on about this many times before. That's why I refer to RAS score so often. And Curtis Jacobs was one of the most athletic linebackers in this draft, but not only that, he was one of the best coverage linebackers in this draft and somehow fell out completely, did not get drafted. This is one that is hardest for me to understand why the player did not get drafted. I see no reason why he shouldn't have went in at least the 5th to 7th rounds. And when I watched him, he had really good coverage ability. I mean, really good. I saw him go step for step with tight ends in coverage, good ability to turn his head. I noticed that he did really good reading the quarterback's eyes, reading what the quarterback was going to do. And he also makes a lot of plays in the run game. There were a lot of times where I saw him scraping down the line, making a play on the ball carrier that was not originally on his side of the field. He could shoot through gaps, good blitzer, good run blitzer. If there's one knock on his game that I did notice in the couple of games that I saw, it's that he had some poor tackling attempts. I mean, there were times where he would just try to knock a running back down with his shoulder, and that didn't work, and it came back to bite them later in the play. So if there was a guy that had the best chance to make the Kansas City Chiefs, or the best ability to stick long-term, in my opinion, it is Penn State linebacker Curtis Jacobs. I really encourage you guys to go watch him for yourselves. I mean, there was a lot of times, too, where I'm watching him, I'm like looking for him where a linebacker would typically be lined up, and I'm like, where is he? And it's like, oh, he's basically lined up as a defensive back. I mean, this is a hybrid linebacker safety type guy. This is the Drew Tranquil mold all over again. This is someone that I could definitely see sticking in the Chiefs linebacker rotation long term, and you didn't have to spend a draft pick on him, and that's the most impressive thing. I could definitely see him making the team, because we know that the Kansas City Chiefs didn't really make any linebacker moves that would supplement the loss of Willie Gay. It appears that Drew Tranquil, Nick Bolton, and Leo Chenal will be the starting 3 linebackers next year. They'll be the top 3, but the Chiefs usually carry 4 linebackers. I would not be shocked at all if Curtis Jacobs was that 4th linebacker, because he has the ability, the athleticism, pretty good size. I mean, he had multiple interceptions for Penn State last year. I really like this guy, and I would be on the lookout for him. Do not be surprised if in a couple months from now you're hearing reports out of training camp saying, man, Curtis Jacobs, just absolute playmaker. So really like that pickup as a UDFA. The next UDFA that I want to talk about that the Chiefs signed is Florida State defensive tackle Fabian Love. Pretty good size, 6'4", 320 pounds, but the most impressive thing that I noticed was over 83-inch wingspan. He's got a massive wingspan, and that helps him to make a lot of tackles on the running back and make a lot of tackles in the backfield. There was one play I saw where he was bear hugging the running back. You know, he made the tackle on the running back, but the running back's still trying to fight for those extra yards, and he just rips out the ball and forces a fumble for the Florida State defense. This is a guy that when I watch him play, you can tell he loves football. He loves football. He's always trying to make a play. A lot of splash plays in the backfield. Some of the weaknesses that I saw, and part of the reason he probably went undrafted, is because he lacks lateral agility. He lacks good speed for someone that you're going to want to be able to rush the passer a little bit. That's not really what he's in there to do. This is a run-stuffing defensive tackle. This is someone that's good at the point of attack, can disengage his blockers. He's only going to be a threat to the quarterback, though, if he has a straight line path to the QB. He's not someone, again, that has the lateral movement ability to be a great pass rusher, in my opinion. If there was a comparison for him, it's kind of a younger, souped-up Derek Nottie. Fabian Love isn't a great athlete, but he's got good size. You know, as I said, he's not going to chase down the running back if he misses the first tackle attempt, but he rarely misses the first tackle attempt because he's got great length and he's got good technique. I can see why he went undrafted. He's a little bit of a slow mover, and he just doesn't offer much as a pass rusher. But there's the chance that maybe he could beat out Derek Nottie in camp or something like that and impress. He's a very intriguing prospect, and he has a solid chance to make the roster and crack that rotation, mostly because what the Kansas City Chiefs have at defensive tackle currently just isn't very good. I mean, that's kind of why I was disappointed why they didn't address defensive tackle, is because you have Derek Nottie, Mike Pennell, and Tershawn Morton, which was kind of the same group you had last year, and they weren't very good. They weren't all that great. Mike Pennell had a good Super Bowl, but he's on the older side. He's on a one-year deal. Is this a guy we're going to expect to start 17 games? I mean, I wouldn't expect that out of Mike Pennell. Tershawn Morton's fine as a rotational piece, and Derek Nottie, I feel like, has kind of declined over the last couple of years. So maybe Fabian Love could beat out Derek Nottie, because that's kind of my comp for him. That's where I see him. That's where I see his ceiling as a player. So we will see what happens. The Chiefs usually kind of have their guys on the coaching staff. Derek Nottie's experienced, and he knows the defensive system. So if I were to bet money on it, you know, Derek Nottie's probably still going to be on this team, but look for Fabian Love to give him a run for his money. Another UDFA that I really like is James Madison wide receiver Reggie Brown. the Kansas City Chiefs only came out of this draft with one wide receiver when a lot of us wanted to see them take two wide receivers. They haven't signed another veteran. Doesn't look like they will right now. And based on the way Brett Veach has talked, it seems like they still have some faith in Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. We'll see if that ends up being GM speak or not. But Reggie Brown was a UDFA they brought in, another wide receiver. And this is a guy I think could push Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney in camp. He was a 1,000-yard receiver for James Madison last year in 2023. He was an honorable mention All-American, which is extremely impressive considering he plays at a smaller school. And then he was first team All-Sun Belt. He was a real good deep threat. He averaged 20 yards per catch in 2023. This is a pure deep threat receiver who, when you look at his film, there's a ton of long catches littered throughout and a lot of long touchdowns. He had pretty good contested catch ability too from what I saw. He's not like a jump ball 50-50 guy necessarily, but I saw him make a lot of tough catches where the DB was able to get their hand in the way and he still came down with the ball. I have no idea what his chances are of making the team, but he is another field stretcher. And when you already have Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy now in the fold, it's kind of hard to see how he would find a role for himself. Maybe he lands on the practice squad. I like what I've seen out of him, though. So we'll see. Definitely someone that could push Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney in camp, though, which I think is a good thing. The last undrafted free agent that I wanted to touch on was Houston cornerback Miles Battle. I couldn't find too much film on Miles Battle, but what I can tell you about him is that he was a contributor for Ole Miss for a couple of years in their secondary, then transferred to Utah. Last year for Utah, he had 32 total tackles, 4 passes defended, and 1 interception. But the reason why I'm pretty intrigued with him is that Craig Stout of KCSN tweeted that he was number 1, tier 1, in cornerback athletic testing. This was one of the very best athletes at the cornerback position in all of the draft class. And for that reason, I think he's one to keep an eye on because the Kansas City Chiefs have done a great job drafting under the radar cornerbacks or signing under the radar cornerbacks as undrafted free agents that were super good athletes. And then you just get them in this defensive system learning under cornerbacks coach Dave Merritt. And Dave Merritt has been able to do a lot of great things with some really unheralded cornerback prospects. So shoot, I don't mind at all this team throwing a dart with Miles Battle and seeing what Dave Merritt can do with him with all that athletic ability. So those are all the notable UDFAs that I have been able to look at and form an opinion on. But for the complete list of Chiefs undrafted free agents so far, and I'll just go ahead and repeat the guys that I talked about on the list, but running back Imani Bailey, running back Carson Steel, wide receiver Phillip Brooks, wide receiver Reggie Brown, offensive tackle Ethan Driscoll, offensive tackle Nick Torres, offensive tackle Jalen Cunningham, linebacker Curtis Jacobs, defensive tackle Fabian Love, defensive end Jalen White-McLean, cornerback Miles Battle, safety Christian Roland Wallace, and punter Ryan Recco. I think I'm saying that right. But that is the complete list so far of Kansas City Chiefs undrafted free agents. There might be some delayed ones a little bit later or some camp invites. But for the most part, those are the most notable and intriguing Kansas City Chiefs undrafted free agent prospects. Let me know down below what you guys think of the Kansas City Chiefs UDFAs, if there are any that you are equally as interested in, or are there any that I didn't mention that you guys think I should look into? Let me know down below. With all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this, and make sure you check out my work on ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com for more, and I'll see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!